The Old Bandicoots have been going on for the last six episodes now. We have something new to discuss, something new to say. This week, we're going to be talking about the most used phrase in branding. You build brands. What does that mean? The brand is not a physical entity, even if the product is. So, where exactly is the building happening? In an architect's case, there is an elevation, there is a start date, there is an end date, and there is a way in which you can see the building actually come up, or you can see the building take shape. How exactly does branding take shape? What are the issues involved? It's a fairly abstract idea, the idea of the brand itself. So we thought we'd spend an episode on it because this phrase is bandied about so much. Everyone assumes that it's very well known and very well understood. Oh, I'm building brands. What does that even mean? What do you think, Narayan?
I think it's a practical way of saying what should the brand be doing this year to either keep up with what it's been doing last year and the year before and so on. What is it that we keep? What is it that we try anew? And therefore, a practical way of looking at it is a period of a year. Talk of annual plans and all that. Therefore, a year seems like a time unit where you can look at what are we doing. And so, at its very basic thing, it's a calendarization of the efforts that we need to put tends to be called as something contributing towards brand building. Now, of course, the larger question is why is this necessary at all? The necessity of it is probably explained by the fact that if you took the opposite and said that what if I didn't do it, it would mean that you could just do brand building with a single campaign. You just need to announce it to the world and after that shut up. Obviously that doesn't work. So
Yes.
therefore, in a way, you need that constant reminder of what the brand is up to. And also, as humans, since there are many things fighting for our attention as consumers, sometimes when you see, especially people of our generation, when we see suddenly a brand like, just to take an example, an ad for an Aramusk soap. Aramusk soap was there in the 90s or earlier or something. Now, supposing yesterday you woke up and you saw an ad for an Aramusk soap. I've not seen one for the last 20 years, so I don't think
Yeah,
they're
we
there
don't even
anymore.
know if it exists in the market anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the point. When you don't see whether it's Aramis or anything, you
Yeah.
don't know if it exists. Therefore, if that could be a Philips hairdryer, it could be some light bulb, it could be a water heater, it could be anything. Therefore, this brand building at a very practical level is also a question of hello, I'm there still. You are almost required mandatorily to put aside some money to keep alive not so much the awareness but as the continuity that I exist at a very, very basic level. Because given sufficient absences, people can come to the conclusion of thinking that that brand is no longer there, and or they are not sure, and therefore they assume that the brand isn't there.
You're talking of a brand which is already in the mind and is being maintained. Or let's say there is an annual plan, there is a certain, way in which it's being taken forward. What about building the foundation? What does that involve? Where does it begin? Because there is a phase at which, a product sort of transforms into being in the consciousness because people realize, hey, I can't just say that this is good. I've managed to do my distribution. I've managed to get the first set of customers in. I have a fairly regular business cycle where money is coming in, profits are okay. Now, how do I keep this going? Because at some point, I think the product and everything that you do around it tends to run up against a wall. So at that point, I'm saying, can we describe in simpler words what exactly does the foundation of building a brand constitute?
I would say that, building a brand is basically about something to do with these three things. One is what, from a client's point of view, what that brand is all about. What does it offer? Which category it belongs? Why is it different? What we call, if you were to question the product, interrogate the product and its benefits, what is it all about, and what is its price? Who is it meant for? All that kind of regular standard advertising questionnaire kind of stuff, where we are just questioning the product alone and what, or the service, and seeing what it has to offer. The second part of it has to do with what is the consumer looking for or getting out of it, because you may want to offer something like a lime detergent smell in a washing machine, for example. I don't think it's been done, probably nobody will do it, but supposing you say that that is my unique selling point, now it's a moot question whether any consumer wants that in a washing machine. Maybe they do, I don't know. But
Yeah.
chances are we've been used to it in detergents, not so much in washing machines. So Or maybe even they open the door, they get this smell or something like that. Now, supposing if that was the product feature or something like that, now it's another question to know whether that's going to fly with the consumer or enough set of customers. There'll always be oddball customers who will buy anything, but are there sizable numbers to constitute a market would be the next thing. Third thing is the competition. So between the product, the consumer, and the competition, on these three pegs, you can come to some kind of a conclusion, interrogate each of these areas thoroughly, and you look at isn't that what the competition also is saying, really? Maybe we think it's unique to us. It certainly our product delivers on that. Certainly the consumer wants, but hey, there are three other brands that are also offering exactly the same thing, which is a different sort of a problem. Then you need some confluence of some kind where you are unique or different. Your customers want something like that, and your competition is not offering it. So if they wanted that, they'd have to come to you. I think, therefore, your foundations that you're talking about of brand building is to establish that, hey, I am here and I have this. Second, I am for you, the consumer, of this kind and that kind. The urban, not the rural, the polished, not the riffraff, the premium, not the whatever. And listen, nobody else has really got this kind of thing going. We give you this many kilometers per liter, or we've got this fragrance going, or depending on the product, we are a better shoe, we are a better jeans, we are a better whatever it is. The basis for all kinds of communication have been standard, therefore, for as long as we know, maybe 50, 60 years from whenever Claude Hopkins and all these guys started this whole thing. They've been talking about roughly these things. Why am I different as a product, and how does that benefit you and your family or whatever, and why it is unlikely that you won't find it anywhere else but with us. If you were to take some measures on these three things and make that package clear in some creative, concise, interesting manner that is memorable, you're home. And after that, it's a question of repeating it or finding elegant variations of it year after year. There are interactions from the customer, and the customer maybe after 1 year says that, this lemon flavor is not really fresh for me, for argument's sake.
Idea of once the brand is built and it builds a certain consciousness in the customer, it becomes a very strong proposition. I remember this exercise which we did in the office where we just gathered people around, both men and women, and the women were very emphatic that they wouldn't use Lifebuoy because it was so male in its projection. It is, if you take these 10 bars of soap and put them on a table, there's precious little to differentiate them except in terms of fragrance and the shape of the bar. But in the mind of the consumer, it is so deeply rooted that it's almost as if there's a physical reaction from, no, I will not use Lifebuoy. I remember a Sunsilk commercial where there's this group of bike in a bathroom, they find Sunsilk, and this guy uses it, and it's so soft. He doesn't want to come out. Suddenly, his manly image is impacted. So you have these things where you use constructs once the brand is built to ensure that the customer is very closely bonded to what that product is communicating. And obviously, this happens only after years and millions of rupees or dollars or whatever it is spent on advertising. Which is where I'm coming back, circling back to that question of, you put it clearly in terms of what it means. That is the construct between the customer, the competition, and the product. All that is clear. But from an abstract viewpoint, which is you are promoting a product, but in the mind of the consumer, it stands for something that they relate to or they identify with. Do you think that there is a bit of a gap there? Why do we identify with it so closely?
No, I think that is the magic of storytelling, which we, I think, earlier covered, which means
Okay.
that since consumers buy products at one level, but they buy stories at a deeper level. If they bought stuff only at the product level, then they would keep on trying anything and everything that came in that same product category just for the heck of it because another one is available. But if instead they bought your product because they bought into the story, it will be very difficult for them to themselves go and try something else that easily or that often. And that is precisely the magic of storytelling that has been seen over the years, because it binds the customers to your product in a way that products by themselves and their rational qualities alone won't be able to do. For example, At one level, you would say cars in a certain price range, for example, are more or less the same. I would guess. Now, anywhere in the world, if you were to say Volkswagen, it's been built on a single word called reliability. Somehow, reliability has been built, like you said a while ago, over many thousands of dollars and over a period of years, especially in the West. Therefore, the connection between reliability and Volkswagen is pretty high. Scandinavian Volvo all over the West has stood for safety. I suppose it has the same number of airbags or whatever, but they've shown you enough of the build and the trouble they take and the tests that they do with dummies and all that over the years. So you think, oh, Volvo is safe. I have some kids at home, and there is a certain assurance that's being. These are all stories, and in a similar way, a BMW makes you think of this German white-coated engineer sitting and figuring out all the insides in computers and whatnot and engineering. Therefore, there is some excellence to do with German engineering and whatnot and all that. Perhaps even a Mercedes. So, therefore, certain images, stories have been told to us and we've bought into them. Therefore, effectively, they've been sold to us. And we had, with our own experience, if these had been proven to be untrue, then the word would have spread. But so far, nobody has ever claimed anywhere, no, Volkswagen is not reliable, a Volvo is not safe, a BMW is not a highly engineered product. We've not heard these counter stories, so we have no reason to disbelieve these things. So,
Yeah.
therefore, when you have stories like that, whether it's a Surf Excel or a luxury car, bought into certain kind of imagery, you bought into certain smells, you bought into certain kind of familiarity. This is therefore a new brand will always find it difficult to break simply because they may think that there are only 5 6 brands in this category, let us be the seventh, and I'm sure there'll be a market. Maybe there is, but it's not easy. Once there are one or two established brands, as they tend to be in every category, then certain stories you can take for granted have already been given and bought, and that bind is what creates brands, and that is the difficult thing to break from a point of view of a new brand arriving on the scene.
Volkswagen, the only time I think they slipped was a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I think, when that whole scandal about the diesel thing came out. As a brand, they should never have made that product decision. Maybe it's compulsions, maybe it was the market realities that they probably had to undergo. I don't know enough about it to figure out why it was done, but obviously that created a certain difference in how Volkswagen was perceived, and maybe the brand slipped a bit, but that's precisely the point.
I don't think, therefore all the cars have been recalled and they've now closed shop and gone home. It's not true.
Right.
I saw one overtaking our car today. So, it's like
Yeah.
those worms in the Cadbury's chocolates about 10, 15 years ago kind of stuff.
Yeah.
These are challenges, momentary challenges that are, of course, can be nightmares for people handling it. And you don't want to be the
Handling the
chairman
brand.
or some head honcho of a company when these are all business decisions. Like, it was not so much like it was proven that the cars were unsafe or unreliable. It was just a
Yeah.
bad decision that you
Right.
wanted to save cost, and therefore you hit certain things. And if what I remember of that Volkswagen story is correct, it was to do with some saving money here, and therefore they didn't disclose what they were doing. And so I think most brands face challenges like this. The kind of stuff that happened to Cadbury's, maybe it was 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I don't remember now, but when it happened, they certainly changed the packaging. The kind of foil that they used afterwards became a double
They
something or
had to
the other.
convince people that, yes,
And then, of course, you can rely on that very reliable thing, far more reliable than a Volkswagen, which is the shortness of public memory. So, therefore, they are going to, within 2 months, nobody, that news has come and gone.
that happens.
And,
Yeah.
and
Especially when
after
it comes to advertising. Yeah, that's true.
and products. After that, where Diwali
Yeah.
comes around, you'll go and buy Cadbury. So at that time, you're going to know these are worms. Nobody's going to think about it. I'm saying in good, strong brands, these kind of even serious things, the brands are strong enough to, generally strong enough to withstand these storms.
Withstand the.
In fact,
Absolutely.
if these storms kind of upset your apple cart, so to speak, then it may not have been a strong brand to start with at all.
So, on that note, we will end this episode of building brands and what it means. As Narayan just expanded, it's between customer, the product, and the competition. It depends on storytelling. It is built in the customer's mind, and the strength of the brand is essentially how it weathers the storms in the market. So, subscribe to Old Bandicoots. Spread the word, tell people about what this channel is about. Enjoyed listening to it. And we'll be back next week with another episode. Do tune in. Thank you.